So we got a couple of different sort of things to talk about. Yesterday, of course, Danielle Smith, the province, the premier of Alberta, meeting with Christine Fréchette in Quebec City. I was asking Jim Ennie earlier, has there been much fallout from this? But what did you think, of the meeting in and of itself?
Well, I think she came here seeking allies because in the end, she Danielle Smith, yes, they're going to have a consultative, non-binding referendum in October in Alberta to, quote, start the formal process possibly of seceding from Canada. But Danielle Smith is opposed to, she's in favor of Canadian unity. So she's seeking, clearly here, she's seeking allies to push eventually on the federal government, to put pressure on the federal government to increase the autonomy of provinces across the country. And she feels like obviously there's some fertile ground here in Quebec for those ideas. So I think it's an opportunity for Christine Fréchette and the CEQ because as we know, they have an autonomist agenda. They have their views of the federal government in Quebec and Alberta are quite similar. It's one of the rare things we have in common with Albertans is that we
hate the federal government. Right.
We're often at odds with Ottawa. So there's an opportunity here, I would say, for Christine Fréchette to seize and to eventually make an alliance with Alberta to put pressure on the federal government, saying, listen, there are some issues that we need to fix, and if we don't fix them, then those separatist movements you see rising, yes, in Quebec, that's been for a long time. The threat of having a possible third referendum and the PQ elected with a very narrow majority right now, if you look at the latest projections, is still there. And on the other side, you have more than 1 in 3 Albertans that are considering voting in favor of starting a formal process of secession in Alberta. Okay. So we have to tamper down those movements by allowing the federal government to maybe transfer more powers to those provinces and give them more autonomy and respect more their fields of competence.
So as you say this, I think to myself, Raph, nothing in here is new. I mean, the idea of, the autonomy, whatever, this has been the case forever. The fact that there's going to be a referendum on a referendum in Alberta, yes, 1 in 3 support it, but 2 and 3 don't. So in all likelihood, that's not going anywhere. In Quebec, this threat of, if you don't give us what we want, we could have separation. We know the numbers now against separation are higher than they've been in the last 30 years. It seems to me like there's nothing to be gained here. So for me, this is like Danielle Smith trying to, win a popularity contest for some reason, and I don't really understand it.
I get your point, but I think at the same time she's doing the work of showing Albertans that if they vote no in the referendum this fall, they might be able to get something from Ottawa. She wants to get...
She's showing them they might get something from Quebec, not from Ottawa. How is she showing them get something from Ottawa?
Well, it's about finding allies that will be on your side to put pressure on the federal government. For a long time, Quebec and Alberta have been complaining about the situation on their side, and now she's basically sending a branch of olive to Quebecers, saying, let's work together and try to fix the problems we have in this country, and hopefully that will temper the ambition of some to secede from the rest of the country.
Cynic that I am, I look at this olive branch as, basically just performative. I think this is for her. And with respect to Alberta, again, she did come out and say when she announced this vote on the referendum, that she would be supporting the stay in Canada side, right?
Absolutely. So that's why she's doing this. She's showing Albertans see what we can do
by still staying in Canada.
If we remain in Canada, we can make gains here by making alliances with other provinces that have the same complaints about the federal government as we do.
And by other provinces, she means one other province.
There might be others.
This is like 1 and 1 is 3 to me. Okay. You want to bring up something. I know this was a local story here about energy drinks. It was a situation, a young man dying in Rosemere, I think, right? And we're just talking, you brought up an interesting point. So now this has come to the point where the government is considering a ban, or I guess they would like a ban on all energy drinks. What's your issue with this?
The bill will officially be tabled tomorrow at the National Assembly by Health Minister Sonia Bélanger. So the bill is supported by all parties in the National Assembly except the Conservatives. So they have one MNA, as we know, Maïté Blanchette-Vézina, and she's opposed to it. And I think they have an interesting position to it. Today she said, are we going to ban grapefruit? Because the thing is, what happened with that 15-year-old boy 2 years ago is that the energy drink interfered with a medication that he was taking, a prescription drug that he was taking. And so he died because of that, not because of the energy drink itself, but because of the interaction of the energy drink with his medication. So why would we move forward with a ban Whereas we could rather promote education to the youth, saying, be careful with energy drinks. If you drink too much, it could be harmful to your life.
Hold it. But it's not if you drink, you just said that, it's not if you drink too much. It's if you drink too much and you happen to be taking medication, you risk perhaps dying.
Yeah.
Why do we just put that on the bottle? Why do you have to ban this?
Education is part of it. Having health notifications on the bottle or on the can. That's part of the solutions that we could put forward rather than completely banning it for everybody. To me, it makes no sense. And what opposition parties are saying is that experts are saying that energy drinks overall are bad for the health of the youth. Well, okay, fair enough. But
still buy Red Bull, can't you? That's been around for a long time.
The same experts are going to tell you that hamburgers and fries and fast food are bad for your health.
So
are we going to ban those too for the youth 16 and under? Are we really going in that direction? I think education should be rather favored here rather than just banning altogether.
But with just one seat, one MNA in there, this is going to go through, is it not?
This is probably going to go through if they have time, because we have a rather packed legislative agenda. They have only 5 days left in the National Assembly before the session adjourns for the summer, and then we're going to have the general election in the fall, as we know. And they have still 19 bills to adopt by the end of next week. So it's going to be a hefty burden to go through for all MNAs in the National Assembly.
And maybe one of the ones that doesn't get adopted will be this Simon Barrette Bill of Bills, his Quebec Constitution. What's up with that?
So Jolin Barrette is accusing opposition parties right now of obstructing the adoption of his Constitution project because they are basically, we call it filibustering, so they're tabling amendments in parliamentary committee.
It's like they do in the U.S. when they filibuster.
Exactly.
Right?
They're slowing down the legislative review process in the National Assembly so that we don't get to a final vote before the session adjourns. And Jolin Barrette is upset about it because, of course, he knows that the clock is ticking for his government. Their chances are very high that he might not be back as Justice Minister following the next election in the fall. And so it's also about his legacy. What will he leave behind him as Justice Minister? So he wants it to be adopted before the summer vacation.
It's funny because, as we have pointed out before, let's assume the election happens in October, the CAQ loses, and Simon Barrette's sort of done. The next government can just walk in and take this entire bill and simply say, yeah, no, we don't think so, and it's done. It's not law, right?
By the time the session adjourns, every bill that was under review at the National Assembly dies.
Right.
You have to table it again in a new session.
Yeah.
So,
which is not going to happen.
If it's not adopted by the end of next week, it's over. That's over. It's not going to be, and you won't have a Liberal government or a Parti Québécois government bringing that back because, of course,
not theirs.
The Liberals are against it, and the Parti Québécois wouldn't want to show that the Canadian Constitution functions for Quebec,
By the way, if it did pass, even if it did manage to get passed, right, and we go post-election and there's now a Liberal government or a whatever government, they could simply change
they could amend it as much as they want. So it's not like the Canadian Constitution where you have an amendment process. Any future government could make amendments to it. That's why, for instance, Éric Duhem, the leader of the Quebec Conservatives, says we should adopt it now, even though it's flawed, so that we can review it and eventually amend it after the next election, if ever the Conservatives were to form the next government.
So the only other story I can think of today is the story, and we talked about this with our listeners earlier on today, the Prime Minister announcing that the study, this advisory council on anti-Semitism, and reaction has been actually pretty negative across the board. I was speaking to Mark Miller about this. He's the chair of the committee. And the question is, well, do we really need another study? We know what's going on. What is this going to achieve?
Well, it's something we see often, I would say oftentimes on the left, having committees over committees over committees to confirm things that we are aware of. I mean, just look at the news this week. We have doctors that are fleeing the province because there's a rise in the number of anti-Semitic acts in this province. So the problem is obvious, I believe, to mostly everyone here in this province. We just have to acknowledge it and find solutions.
I think the buck?
It's about gaining time. You can't address a situation. If you can't address a situation, then you put a committee in charge of it, and you wait for it to come up with recommendations, which eventually maybe you will apply, but the report could be also put on a tablet, as we say.
That also sounds to me like passing the buck at the end of the day. So, all right, Raph, I thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
An iHeartRadio experience. Jelly Roll, live in Quebec City at Festival d'été de Québec. Presented by Bell in collaboration with Coors Light. You could win VIP tickets for two for July 19th with flights, hotel, and $1,000 cash.
I'm wide awake and I'm dreaming.
Download iHeartRadio. Listen to CJAD 800 for 10 minutes and enter to win. Jelly Roll at FEQ. Every day you listen is another chance to win.